SheepBytes allows the user to store and print off a variety of ration reports. To demonstrate this, let's go to the Rations list page, select the lamb TMR, and open it up. So previously we balanced a ration for these lambs using 5.9 pounds of the TMR. If we go over to the far right end of this bar, we can see something called Reports. Click on that button and we get a blank page, but again along this bar here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different reports that are available for that ration. So it asks us to select a report, and the first one we'll look at is the quick report. We click on that and up pops our report. We did not populate the information there on the users, but we've got all this other information here now on that lamb ration. You can see again it describes the lamb, growing lambs, medium-sized, 65 pounds, etc. Our predicted average daily gain was 0.69. It reminds us of what the environmental conditions were. Here we've got the information on 60 days of feeding and so on. And what you see on that screen then is what you can get printed off in a report. Page 2 allows us to compare the nutrients that are supplied in the feeds versus the recommended amount, and it also provides us on the far right-hand side with the diet concentration. So that report then, that quick report, can be stored or printed. But to do that, the first thing we have to do is download the PDF. This green box here, if we click on that, it says the PDF download was successful. We open it up, and you'll see that the format has changed slightly. This is now a printable or a storable format. Down in the right-hand corner here, you'll see this box popping up, and there's the icon for the printer if you wish to print, or the little diskette there if you wish to store that disk. So as long as you're synchronized with your printer, clicking that box there will allow you to print that report off in a hard copy that will be just as you see it on the screen. There's page 1 of the quick report, and here's page 2. You can see that the date that you created that report is captured down here in the lower left side, and it tells you that there's 2 of 2 pages here available. So we'll close out that report by clicking on the red box here. It asks us if we want to leave this page, and we don't. We want to stay on this page. We want to take a look at the ration report. Same thing with the ration report. There's a bit more detail there than you found on the quick report. So take a moment to look at that on your own. Here's the breakdown of the mix, showing us what's in that mix, both on a percentage basis and a batch basis. And again, page 2 gives us the ratios that were present in that ration. So if you want to capture that information in hard copy, you can do that. And here's the supplied versus the recommended. This ration still fits on 2 pages, this ration report. To get it to print out, we hit download, open, and then again there's the icon for the printing. Very similar reports. The ration report is usually a bit more information. We hit the close out. We want to stay on this page. One thing that's quite useful, especially if you're going to your feed company, for example, is this Feeds Available report. So this lists all the different feeds and what their nutrient content is on a dry matter basis. So for example, here's the ABC lamb supplement right through here, the second one through. And if we didn't need quite as much protein in that, we could take this to our feed company and say, well, my ration shows I only need a 25% protein than a 35% content on a dry matter basis. So you could cheapen up your ration by reducing the protein content. So all the feeds that you've used in your ration are available here and printed out for your records. This usually fits on one page unless you've used a lot of different feeds. We'll take a look next at the water report. In this case, we did not enter water data for the lambs, but again, you can get a printout of that report for your use. The batch scale sheet report is interesting and very useful in the feedlot in particular. So we've got our TMR for lambs. If we've got a pen of 300 lambs, as we said before, the as-fed amount per day works out to that amount, 1,770 pounds. Our minimum batch, we can set the minimum batch that we want to mix. The default there is 500. Let's change the minimum to 1,000. And the maximum batch is 4,000. Let's change that to 8,000. So those of you that used TMR mixers will find this in particular very useful when you have scales on your mixer. An increment of 100 pounds is probably too small. 500 pounds is probably more practical. Choose order to add feedstuffs. So feedlots like to add their ingredients in different orders, whatever is efficient on their farm. You can change these around by dragging and dropping. So the default here is barley silage in this ration. If this was be the last thing that you were going to add, you would move it to the bottom. And there we've got, by dragging that, we've now got our first ingredient, the supplement, the second ingredient in order, and barley grain, and the third ingredient is barley silage. When you're using a scale, you often want to round off for whatever makes sense. If you've got any ingredient going into a batch of between, let's say, 0 and 100 pounds, we set that to 100. And the rounding factor, we've got a few options here. Let's say we want to round any of those ingredients that are put in small amounts to half a pound. If anything from 100 to, let's say, 1,000 pound increments should be rounded off, and we can again select here 1 pound. And anything over 1,000 pounds all the way up to, let's say, 8,000 pounds, which is our top of our range, we would not worry about them being any closer than 5 pounds. We then click on here to generate the report. And here's our batch scale sheet report. It is in a larger font than any other reports, and that's done intentionally to allow you to read this in the dim light of a tractor or a truck cab. So here's the amount that's required to go in the order that it's supposed to go in for 1,000 kilogram batch. Here's a 1,500 kilogram batch, etc. All the way up to 8,500 kilograms, and here's the ingredients that would go into that batch. So in each line, there's always the percent of mix, and then it's converted to the batch sizes. The scale reading column shows the next target weight to reach when adding the next ingredient. So once you've set up that batch mix, you ask to download the PDF. It tells us it's complete, and that's what that would look like once you printed it off. Again, the font size here is large enough to make it relatively easy to read by your tractor or truck operator. Just go down to the print icon and print, and you will have that report printed out for you. So most people find that the batch scale sheet report is very useful if they're feeding a lot of sheep. So we're going to leave this page, and in the next video we'll be talking about the summary report.